also do is as soon as I start recording, we'll also try and live stream. I've not done this before. All right, I think it's working. Okay. So if you give me a few minutes. In the meantime, you can say something.
Charly, are you in England or where are you? Where are you speaking
Yes,
from?
I'm in Sheffield. Yeah, where are you?
In Puerto Madryn, in Argentina and Patagonia.
Oh wow! Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so far, far from England. But I am only in a research state. I live in Norway, in Oslo. So I am for 10 months here. So I am originally from Argentina, but I have lived many years in Norway.
How is Argentina?
Argentina, it's chaotic. It's totally, it's very sad, and I am laughing, and it's beyond fiction what is going on in relation to politics and the president and the government. It's like the Trump aesthetics of politics and like performance and a lot of tweeting or X now, and so the politics is on social media, and no, so it's and it's inflation almost 300%. So it's it's really. I work in a research institute, and my colleagues are trying to find. They have permanent positions, and I'm trying to find new jobs just to make ends meet. So it's like it's crazy. It's like and it's very sad because I think the land is it's a huge country. It's a rich country, and but the bad administration after so many years have affected us at the point that to have a president that is incapable to unable to lead. It's like So, and also for me the most worrying is all the hate speech, and he's against he's from far right. So it's a kind of disaster what is going on. So and for me this topic, the topic I am going to talk today, I think it's important because one of the groups that are suffering but will suffer even more are the indigenous people, because he's opening for large extractivist projects in indigenous people's land. So it's a special moment in time, I think, not only in Argentina but everywhere where you see and where you looked. So
I hear you. Right, we are almost done. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I always very afraid of technical issues. I'm thinking, please, I hope that I have internet today.
Cecilia, I just moved to the UK after 10 years abroad. And I had a similar kind of reaction. The UK is I mean, it's so different to how it was even 10 years ago. I mean, the rise of the far right, you know, I think for other people that have lived here, and obviously I can't generalize, but I remember being under a Labour government. So I remember the last time I was here was a Labour government. So there was a very different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And not to say that the Labour government have the answers, because they don't, but it was certainly a different situation to now, you know, where people don't have enough money to eat, you know, like there's a huge problem with precarity, housing, nutrition, schooling, education, so many things, and so many hate crimes, and so it's quite shocking, and it's quite overwhelming at times. Like sometimes I don't really know what to do, you know. It's like it kind of makes you freeze a little bit, because it's just like
no, it's very discouraging. I feel very frustrated, and at the same time I feel split between two worlds, because I'm going back to Norway, so like, you know, it's
Right. So I'll start. I'll let people in, and then we start.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll also make you co-host, Charly, in case anything happens to my connection.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Post-Migration in the Arts, where we meet to look at work that is taking place at the intersection where post-migration and the arts meet. In this session, we are going to have 3 speakers. We have got, let me get my notes. We've got Charly Morris, who is in the UK. We are also going to have Augustine Murenzi, who is based in Kenya. And we've got Cecilia Salinas, who is in Norway. And we are going to look at art forms. We are going to look at topics that include arts-based methods, storytelling, visual arts, and digital activism. But before we begin, can I ask something of you, all of you who are present? Can I ask you to put in the chat where you are, and also what you can get for €5 where you are? So this is the exercise, you know, just put in where you are and what you can get for €5. And then we go to the next. Charlie in the UK says we can get a coffee, Fran, a coffee or a pastry. Anyone else? Coffee and a pastry, iced latte, coffee in Berlin, a nice cake in Scotland. Cake is nice. All right. Now, the reason why I am asking this question is because a few months ago, I came across an appeal by Sunday Lawrence, who is a second-year law student at the International University of East Africa in Kampala, Uganda. Sunday Lawrence is a refugee from South Sudan and is a law student. He is trying to raise some money for tuition. He has raised some of it and needs to raise about 1,500. The hope that I have is that maybe if you can, you could send him a €5. I will put a link in the chat to his crowdfunding appeal. And the reason why I'm doing this, the reason why we are doing this is because if we don't do it, chances are, he will still struggle to raise the money that he needs. And for as little as €5, we can give him a chance to become the lawyer that he hopes to become. So I will put Sunday Lawrence appeal in the chat. Please support him in any way that you can. And please also share Lawrence's appeal with others who might equally be able to support him. And with that is the introduction from me. We turn to our speakers. We'll start with Charly and then Cecilia. If you could introduce yourselves and talk about, who you are, what you do, where you do it, and also how it all started for you. We'll start with you, Charly.
Yeah, 1 second, sorry. Okay, I'm Charly Morris. I was originally a painter and I worked in a school in Mexico as head of expressive arts, and there I became interested in geopolitical conflict. After that, I completed a master's in human geography with a specialism in conflict studies. And my interest is mostly migrant experiences, space and place, but also the creative process. Yeah, that's my introduction.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Salinas. I am originally from Argentina, but I live in Norway. I migrated to Norway in 2001. And I have visual arts education from Argentina, and it was not recognized in Norway. So I changed the field and I took the secondary school and started studying again. And I am a doctor in social anthropology today. And I have position as a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Oslo. This year through 2024, I am placed in Argentina, in Puerto Madryn, in the province of Chubut, and I am doing field work among the Mapuche-Chewelche indigenous people. Since I am a visual artist, I am also combining an artistic approach in ethnographic research.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Charly. How about you? In the work that you are doing, maybe before we even go to that, can you maybe say something about or on what is happening around forced migration where you are?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking Charly, and then we come to you.
One of the key pieces of research I've done was with Ukrainian women who were refugees forced out of Ukraine. So the particular circumstances that they were in are very unique and different to other migrants. What's happening where I am? I'm in the city of Sanctuary in the UK, which is the city where newly arrived migrants are most welcome, and here there are more services to support them. However, resources and funding and support are really diminishing, which leads to all kinds of very difficult situations. Yeah, so that's what's happening.
What are some of those situations? What are some of the difficulties?
For example, when the Home Office last week published reports about doing raids and taking migrants to detention centres and deporting to Rwanda, lots of young migrants in particular here went into hiding. Some were living outside in parks, in friends' sofas, and they were afraid to access services or go and visit friends or do anything. So it's very extreme. And yeah, like all kinds of housing issues. Sometimes there are lots of migrants who don't have anywhere to live or any clothes, any clean clothes, any food. So it's extreme. Yeah.
And are these migrants or are they refugees?
Well, I say migrants because it could include asylum seekers, it could include refugees. Anyone, when I say migrants, I mean anyone with their migrant background or experience. Yeah, so there would be a wide range of people, some who are seeking asylum, some who are in the process, some who are refugees.
And Ukrainian refugees being threatened with removal with detention or with removal to Rwanda?
No, Ukrainian refugees that I know of in my studies don't face the same treatment. No.
So who is being threatened in this way?
Again, that's a broad range of people. I don't know what the statistics are. However, I would say that people who receive that othering and this kind of treatment would be more from countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Syria. Those would be some of the countries, I would say. Mm-hmm.
And what's the difference between those people and Ukrainians?
Well, that's the thing. You'd have to ask the Home Office that. There's a very different approach. I think there are a lot of implications there.
Would you say that racism is comes in?
100%. Yes, I would.
Okay. How about you, Cecilia? What's happening where you are?
I wanted to say that I relate to forced migration in two places. Through 2021, through the pandemics, I started a fieldwork about anti-racism, digital activism in Norway. And then many of the research participants were either refugees who came to Norway as children, or they were the children of refugees. So I was very interested in the existential aspect of being, of having this origin, having been forced to migrate to a new place and having to cope with racism and unbelonging and discrimination. So those were the topics of that research. And among those research participants, there were also children of Mapuche people, the indigenous people from Patagonia, from both Chile and Argentina. So through that project as well, through different connections, I started this new project, and the Mapuche and Chewelche indigenous people, that these names are just generic names because there were many indigenous people that have mixed, and it's a very dynamic identity, but I use these two names, and they have been, the history of those indigenous people is marked by forced migration since the period of European conquest in the 16th in Patagonia, and have it's an ongoing process where they are forced to migrate either to other province in Patagonia. Patagonia is a huge area comprising several provinces, even to migrate to abroad. There is Mapuches in Norway, England, many places in the United States, and they have been this forced migration have been driven by a variety of factors like colonial violence, slavery, land dispossession, deterritorialization, exploitation, and all kind of industries, both capital industries, both the most mine, but also the green capitalism, like nature conservation, the fishing industry. So there is tourist industry. So there is so many factors that have forced them to leave their places. Actually, several of the communities who live in Chubut now in this part of the coast have emigrated from the Andean areas from far ago. So yeah, so I'm interested in this topic, and I think the indigenous people show us that there are so many people living with forced migration for centuries. So therefore, I think it was an interesting topic to bring into this discussion.
And maybe I don't know if you can also help us visualize where Patagonia is. Where is it? What countries are around it? And
Patagonia is a huge area in southern Argentina and Chile, and it extends from the limits of, we'll see the middle of the country, Buenos Aires, and the entire south. There's 4 provinces, and it's really huge. And during the 19th century, there was infamous militarization. They call it the conquest of the desert, where the elite in Buenos Aires started a conquest of the desert, not because it was seen as ecologically being a desert, but they saw that place that belonging to the indigenous people as an empty place, and it was not empty. So they started with ethnic cleanings and the genocide, the big genocide for the indigenous people. So so and since that time they have been fighting, and today are also fighting hate speech and discourses that the Mapuche are not from Argentina, that the Mapuche people are from Chile, that the Tehuelche people have been murdered, and they doesn't exist anymore. So it's like so there are very dangerous discourses as well.
And what is happening in Norway around forced migration? What is the atmosphere like? What are the discourses like?
The discourses are, unfortunately, much of as in other countries in Europe, as Charly was saying, there is a difference between the way Ukrainian refugees are treated. They have been granted with several privileges, even when maybe they are not privileges, but in relation to how other migrants from continents in Africa or Latin America or Asia have been treated, they have had some privileges. And what, for me, I'm very into topics like trauma. For me, was very eye-opener because there are so many children's refugees or children of refugees that are traumatized, and there have never been a focus on that. on that at school and the kindergarten, you know, when they are received. But that focus started when the Ukrainian migrants started to come to Norway, and there was they got teaching courses in Ukraine. They have books in Ukraine, so the children have a lot of tools, you know, to cope with this forced migration that is evident that the other refugees coming from other places are not having. And now the big discussion is that even some municipalities are trying to pass their own laws and saying that we are not accepting other migrants than Ukraine's migrants. So, and this, yeah.
What does and this is so for both of you. What is your reaction, or what are your thoughts on this differential treatment between Ukrainian refugees on the one hand and non-white refugees on the other?
I would say this issue, amongst others, would be something that I find deeply perturbing and that is in my thoughts all the time. And I think once you start asking questions about why is this happening, you start having to look back in history and understand where these tropes come from. And what you find is more and more ugliness. And so it's kind of a state of like depression, I think. Although I'm not sure I can say that, because it feels as well like I shouldn't say that, because, you know, I have so much privilege. But I think my first experience looking at this kind of colonial history was living in Mexico, and there I spent a lot of time talking with different people, and I suddenly realized where Britain and where these European colonial powers fit into this. And that I think that a lot of people choose not to think about that, and that's their decision. But I've chosen in my life to think about these things as a focus. So I'd say it's not fun, is it? I mean, it's depressing and upsetting, and it's seeing the really nasty bits of humanity, I think. Yeah, that's what I think about it. And that's why I think my research is a way to react to this. So that's what I've chosen to do. I've chosen to think about it extensively throughout my life, but I've also chosen to try and attempt to make some small changes that are in my power. Yeah.
My understanding of this situation is I see through the colonial lenses, and I like to think with a concept of a sociologist from Ecuador, Aníbal Quijano, and he thinks about the coloniality of power, that colonial relations are not over. Colonial relations have create a matrix that mutate, that adapt to new situations. But in the matrix is this racism, this binarism in relation, the division between nature and culture, the hierarchization of people's knowledges, way of living. So I think that coloniality of power form the societies, and in Norway it's deeply racist, even when they deny, and even when they don't understand, and even when they have this a kind of disposition of disregard. This matrix is there, and you see it's so obvious when you see this situation with the Ukrainian migrants and other migrants, and how they are being treated, and how and the funding that there is, they can access to some, even when they are limited, more funding than other migrants that don't get anything, and even they are deported. It's very heartbreaking to see that mothers are being deported and the children, the small children, are staying in Norway. It's awful. But yeah, I see it through this concept.
And also in saying this, I think we should also stress that we are not objecting to the support that Ukrainians have received.
No.
Yeah, we think that it is absolutely commendable. That what is objectionable is the differential treatment,
Yes,
the placing of whiteness as meaning that you get treated like a human being, and if you're not white, you are treated like an object. I think for my part, that is what I am objecting to. I don't know about you.
I am very happy that you say that, because we have to remark that this is, and in Norway, that Ukrainian children get a trauma treatment, that they get books in their own language, books that are about the war, and that they can use art just to go through this awful situation and make sense of war, and that they have to leave behind family, or even the parents are killed. But as you say, this is something that all children, all migrants that are for or should have, So it's the difference that I am very critical, not that the Ukrainians are getting what they should to have a meaningful life, a new life in a new country.
How about you, Charly?
The question is,
just
do I want to condemn this treatment of the Ukrainians?
Your thoughts on the treatment of Ukrainians compared to the treatment of non-Ukrainians.
Yeah, I mean, it's sickening, and it's shocking in this day and age, really, isn't it? I mean, you'd think that there are some small moments where it seems to be that lots of changes are taking place, but I don't think that when you actually look at what's happening, it seems as though those ideas are happening in theory but not in reality. So yeah, it's awful, and I think all migrants, all human beings should have access to the same tools, and it should be compassion for all.
Yeah, and then if we turn to the arts, let's start with how you are using the arts yourselves. Maybe if you could say something about how you are using the arts in relation to issues around forced migration, and then we develop from there.
Okay, so my first idea that I tried, which was to try and trigger place attachment in migrants. So one of the key problems for migrants in the host country is all of these issues and all of this trauma that we are talking about, and many other things like structured family relations, not having access to services, so many things that are just huge challenges. What I wanted to do was to try and use the creative process to facilitate a bond with the new place. So if there was a creative process and a focus point, for example, the city, or I don't know, one small part of the city, if my participants would create artworks around their experiences, then they would engage with the city and they would then hopefully experience a sense of belonging. That would be what I would want. I started off working with much younger refugee girls in London, and they taught me a lot about their experiences and how to do projects that would allow them to maximize the creative process. So that's how I sort of started off. But now I'm working with the young migrants in Sheffield. And again, if the idea is not to prescribe what they should do creatively, but to simply allow for the process. So, for example, I try to pay the participants for their time, and I try to make sure that they get something from the study that will benefit them. So whatever it is they want to work on, we try to build that into the project to try and improve the experience, allow that reflection.
Do you have any images from some of this work?
Yes, I have. If you just
you're mute.
If you just come back to me in a minute, then I will show you some like few pictures.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Celia?
Yes. In 2021, I started the fieldwork among this Norwegian with other ethnic or cultural country background. And the stories were so overwhelming for me that in a way my body imposed a need to draw. I have never before that fieldwork combined art with anthropology so directly, but then I started to draw after many of the fieldwork sessions I have. And after some months, I have 15 images. And I discovered that the images not only were offering me a kind of therapeutic tool to cope with my own feelings of sadness, of having listening to so many sad or horrible stories about racism, war, rape. There was so much. And then I decided to create an exhibition that could travel through different public libraries. And so I make in big roll-ups, 2 meters roll-ups with the images. And then I also started creating short text to give a context to the images. So they are accompanied by short creative text that take as point of departure the stories I got through the fieldwork, what I knew more about the field, and try to contextualize the image. So this is the one of the projects that I call Activism, where I mix this English word activism with Norwegian. So it turned to be Activism. And now I am working with a new series about the Mapuche-Chewelche and their afterlife and ongoing life with forced migration and dispossession. And so I can afterwards show some images.
Okay, that sounds like so interesting, Cecilia. I'm going to share a picture now or two. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Window. Okay, I'm trying to. I don't know why this is a problem. Maybe we continue the chat and I'll have to come back to it.
Yeah. So maybe it's, share screen, and then when you do that, you pick the window that you want to share.
I did that, but now it's not showing me. Okay, is it no, Chrome tab? Okay, maybe this one. Okay, yeah. So here's one collection of. So I tried to make sure that participants can use whatever process they like. So you can see that here there is photos. This person decided to explore their surroundings and take photos, and by that attach this new links with their new place. And they also did lots of drawing work around how they felt. They also mapped their journeys around their new city, and sometimes they've written in Dutch, and sometimes they've written in Russian, and sometimes Ukrainian. So you get a range of languages. And this person approached it really differently because they had this suitcase, and they had to always be ready to leave. And they had this overwhelming desire for their own place. So they were writing, "I want my place." And then little collages of the Ukrainian flag, and thinking about what it means, and thinking about the family tree, and how that can exist across borders, and wondering, where is my place? Where do I belong? And then other approaches, like lots of kind of aspirational quotes, like "be gentle with yourself," and these picture of these flowers with these collage, and then this "we loved with a love that was more than love," and all kinds of messages were coming through. So yeah, it's really fascinating, and lots of different approaches. Like here, this was paper cutaways, like lots of layers. So it was actually a sketchbook which had lots of layers coming out, and every time you turned a page, you saw a new part would form a shadow. And also these burn marks to represent the violence. And this part here is about the plans that they had, but they could no longer do because they didn't have anywhere to live, and their husband was in Ukraine, and they had all of these ideas that they were going to do, and suddenly they had to be forced out. Yeah, so there was lots of approaches. Yeah, so I think it's well, my participants enjoyed this process, and also I would say that I've been fortunate enough to work with lots of people from different places, always with the arts, and that there is a magical quality to making things. And there's lots of research to try and understand why that is, but it's not fully understood. But it is accepted. It's accepted that making things has a physiological benefit, and it's in lots of research described as has an effect on the spirit and the soul. So I think for people who've experienced violence, conflict, trauma, displacement, all of these things, it couldn't be more relevant. And I think if we want to utilize the research process, we've got to try and get away from doing extractive research, and we've got to try and move towards research that can allow the participants to take stock and use the research process for what they need, rather than what we need.
Thank you, Charly. Thank you. How about you, Celia?
I can share some images now. Is possible? Okay. this is the new project I call, but we are still people of the land territory. And I will come back to it, but I put in the same PowerPoint the picture from Activism. And this is one of those. I have 15 of it where I create an image and then I make a creative text taking as a point of departure the stories from the researchers. So this tells that, yeah, as you can see, I am not going to read, but it's the story of a boy called Salem. And the name of all the characters in this traveling exhibit represent the different countries of the research participants originally come from, or their parents. This is another, which is the difficulties to live with this place in between.
Did you make the images?
Yes.
Wow, amazing. Really beautiful, haunting. The text is the stories go so well with them as well.
Yeah, and this is I have just published an article where I go in depth about how I have worked out this because it has so many layers and why, but most of it was because of the story were so overwhelming for me that I started to get images in my head. So I need to put it down, and I discovered that it was also for me to create like a space, and also and I needed, because I am also an anthropologist, I was doing research, I needed that space to think. And all the images have a lot of symbolic they are about the things I learned from the fieldwork. And this is about having a Norwegian mother, a father from another country, the racism, of how it to grow up in places where everything is white and you never ever see yourself. So this is for me, this I try to capture the idea, the importance of representation and of stories for children, where they can also see themselves in a positive way, not only through negative stereotypes. This is the article that I have just published for those interested, where I describe in detail how I combine my artistic approach with ethnographic research. So for those interested, there you can take a screenshot, and now I will show and those who don't have access to visual anthropology, send me an email, because I have some free copies available. So
in this particular paper, was it the stories from the young people, and then you created the visual images?
No, I create the images emerged within me.
Okay.
In fieldwork, and then I create the images, and I didn't know that there was a series. I was just trying to go with COVID and a very intensive fieldwork of digital activism. So it was the digital, and then after a while I understood that this was a series that have a value for my ethnographic research, and what I came to understand that their digital activism was so existential. So, and this is that I discovered doing this, the drawings, and afterwards I was thinking I cannot only put the drawings, they need text that contextualize those drawings. So I started to create short texts, and then I made the exhibition, and then gave me new information, because the exhibition met the research participants, met a wider our audience, that they gave me feedback. So it had been so, this project has been so important for me for my ethnographic research. And I described the entire process from creating the drawings until the exhibitions and the feedback. So it's about ethics of representation, about the importance as a researcher to create spaces to cope with trauma, because as myself, I am a victim of abuse. I also am a migrant. I also have so many layers of trauma that if I go into a field where the topic are sensitive topics, it can also influence me in a way that I can maybe not be a good researcher. So you have to have tools to cope with that. And this is what I describe in this article. But the new project, that we are still from the land, also are images that I'm creating that come from the field. This first image is about scientists and how scientists have also influence in the dispossession and the misrepresentation of indigenous peoples, of the genocide, at the epistemicide. So this image tried to capture the encounter between scientists and Mapuche-Chewelche people. This image is also because there have been so many fires, and the Mapuche-Chewelche are accused of being the one that they are putting the forest on fire. So there was a lot of activity in digital platforms. So I made this image that tried to capture or is inspired by that. This is also about all the indigenous people that have been recently, the last decade, killed for fighting for the land, for against dispossession and disappropriation. Here is the same. It's about territories that they recuperate, but then you have oil industry. So it's like this ongoing dispossessions, forced migration, but that they resist and they are forcefully resilient. So I admire the resistance of the indigenous peoples that after so many centuries they are still resisting. And this is a sacred mountain that have been also represent the militarization of the places where they don't have access, that they cannot do the rituals that are very important for the ontological fabric, for the which is the essence of their existence. Also here is like about all the kind of exploitation, the lack of water, and the whales that are very important. They are sacred animals and for them. So also this green capitalism as well, that put wine mills in their territory without consideration of their rights. Here is the meeting between three in this place where I live in Puerto Madryn. There is a lot of focus on the Walish people, the first migrants. They are the pioneers. You get a lot of information about those first pioneers, but almost nothing about the Mapuche and the Chewelche that live here for centuries. So. And this is also about the private reserves of forests that are where there are indigenous people living there, but they don't have the right to the land. They have the right to live there, to occupy, but they are private property. Okay. This was,
is this last one like a photo with then an etching on, or what's the process for that one?
what I do is I take picture of textures in the places that are meaningful, like the sea, and then I draw and combine with photography, drawing. So they are collage, digital collage.
Really beautiful images, very powerful. Yeah, that's really interesting to think about maintaining your own practice, because I think because I always design the things that I do for me to be completely separate and out of the process. But definitely I think focusing on these topics, and there's so much violence and racism, it definitely starts to really affect your ability to be optimistic. And I think when I'm with my participants, I want to be free of putting any kind of pessimism on them, you know, because I feel like they have enough to carry. So I think like what you're saying there about having a space to process those things is really important. Yeah, very valuable.
And this is for both of you. You know, as researchers, how do you deal with knowing that the institutions within which you are working are also complicit in either the violence or the causes of the violence that is leading to forced displacement, and also the leisure?
It's a question for me, how I am dealing with it. Did you say?
For the both of you.
Cecilia, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. No, it's difficult. I feel sometimes so in a way, this is what I like with the artistic approach, because I can also touch my colleagues in a way. I am very critical to the epistemology from the Western and science and what science have done. At the same time that I am very grateful for my anthropology education that have given me some tools to understand more, because before I found anthropology, I did not understand that the coloniality of my being, because I also have experienced a lot of racism in Argentina. I have an indigenous background. And so for me, I am a split, and I am kind of an activist scientist. And in science, I try to be critical to science. I have a decolonial group, and I read decolonial literature and try to be very conscious about these topics, and try to educate new students with other minds. And now I'm using my arts also to reach new audiences, to also to talk to my colleagues. And I think they are, funny enough, they understand more the artist language that the articles I write about this topic. So I'm very happy for they have that possibility to combine both of research and arts.
Yes, I think I mean I like to believe that in every society and in every institution there always needs to be at least a small percentage of people that are reflecting on these things deeply, and not just within their work but on a personal level as well. And I think if we don't have at least that small percentage, then there really is no hope. So I like the way I see it is I'm aware that the universities are ableist and they're in lots of ways reproducing those racisms and violence, but I try to use my presence and the things that are in my power to be visible. And that's another reason why I think like there are other things like being a woman and coming from a poorer background. There are lots of situations where I feel like, okay, I'm around lots of other people that are much more wealthy than me, who've had, you know, academic parents and everything else. But at the same time, that doesn't matter. Like what I've got to say is still valuable, and the way I do that is through what my participants can share. So, yeah, I try to be reflective about it, and also I try to, in the way I do things, I try to take a sort of decolonizing approach, like with the methods I use, and also with the way I present myself and the language I use. I try to be open, but also I do think it requires a big reflection on your positionality and your privilege. So, like, I feel a lot of shame about you know, the country I come from and so on. But that also is not that helpful. So I try to, I try to be aware of it without going into a massive shame hole, if you know what I mean. It's a delicate balance. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I think at this point we bring in our people who are listening in. Does anyone have a question? If you've got a question, if you unmute and speak to your question, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to ask a question. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ambrose, for creating this space. First of all, it's amazing. And thank you so much, Charly and Cecilia, for wonderful, really inspiring presentations. I'd love to ask Cecilia and both of you really, but Cecilia, because you use the concept of the ethics of representation, I'd love to sort of unpack that a bit with you and hear more what you have to say about the ethics around representation of the people that you're working with. But similarly, Charly, maybe you have something to say as well. Thank you.
I think it's a very, very important topic and very difficult topic. And for me, when I started these drawings and write the short text, I was very scared of the research participants, what they would say, how they will feel that I represent them in the way they deserve. Have I listened to the stories in the way they wanted to be listened? And so for me was the biggest test when I showed the pictures, the images, and I got the responses. And one of the responses that I like a lot was that one said to me that, "Oh, I love the story because it's fiction. It's good to feel that it's fiction, that you have created a fiction, at the same time it's so real, it's so close." But she was for her was important to maintain, and it was the way also to anonymize the research participants. They are very, because I work with artists in Norway, artists in visual artists, musicians, so they and the art sector in Norway for people with minority background is very small. So I have to be very, very careful with the choices I made, not to because also all the racism and hate speech, so to protect them, not to burden them more. So, but I was thinking that if I wrote an article and I published an article before the exhibition, it will be much more difficult to get a response for the research participants about how I represent them, what I have understood from the field I have done. But when they could go to the exhibition stayed for almost 1 month in each library. So they could go back, they could see, they can come, they can tell me, okay, I felt this in this way. And with the new series, is very interesting because, as I said, I combine drawings and pictures. There is a collage. And in one of the images, I took a picture I made with a colleague. She's also Mapuche. And because of the position of the person, not because of the person. And then I made the image. And when I showed her, she said, this blew my mind because she couldn't stop reading in the picture the man, and she didn't like the man. The man represented a man that he's not Mapuche, he doesn't like Mapuche people. And for me, it was a shock because I say, yes, but I change him. Yes, I know, but I still see him. I don't want to see him. You have to do something about that. This is it hurts me. And I thought that not that you did it on purpose, but you were not thinking about about this man, that he was not Mapuche. But I know that he's not Mapuche, but what more the body position I was interested, not in his face, but it was interesting to see that also this is the risk with arts, because in a way with a paper, maybe I have more control what I am writing, but with an image, people read what they want to read, what they read their stories into a picture. So I have not that control. And it was with one of the picture, Activism was the same. There was a woman that said, I know Mira, she's a fantastic singer. But they say, okay, but this is not this Mira, it's another Mira. It's a fictional Mira. So and this is, I think this we have to be aware of that. There's a risk of misrepresentation that can hurt. And then therefore is very important with going to dialogue with the people you are trying to portray. If say biographical, it's another thing. But when you are like me, working with research participants, I have to be very careful and go into dialogue with them and show the pictures and see if they can help me to correct or see more or see differently, taking the pictures as point of departure.
Oh, yeah, I think it's so brave that you that you do these images and go through this whole process as well, because I don't do anything like that. So Helen, to answer your question, I think there's a couple of things I would like to mention. I want my research to be participant centered, so everything about the participant should come from the participant. So a real problem I have is with language, things like the term migrant. I mean, I'm forced to use it, but I would like not to be identifying my participants as migrants, because that's so reductionist. And I hope that by the end of my current work that they will have chosen how they want to identify themselves or name themselves, under what categories, if at all. Secondly, I think I try to do some work about the ethics of representation from the participant's point of view, because there are lots of image hierarchies that we receive in our art educations about what creativity is, or what, a quality drawing is, or these kinds of bizarre constructs that are quite damaging to a lot of people. So I like to take that apart with whoever I'm working with and question, how would you like to represent things, and why? And is it possible that you could maybe discard some of these ideas that you have in your mind of how things, should look? Because I think that's another violence that happens in education, is we're taught to be a good artist, we have to do this certain, specific style, and I think that's very cruel in lots of ways. So I like to work on that as well, which I'm sure really annoys my art teacher friends who are trying to make their students do realistic drawings and so on. But yes, there we go.
Thank you both. And we've got a question from Fran. If you unmute yourself, Fran.
Hello, can people hear me? I'm not sure I can turn on my camera for some
Yes, we
reason.
can hear you.
We hear you and we see you. You're mute. Yes.
Hello. Yes. Okay. My laptop played a little trick on me. Sorry about that. So first of all, I wanted to thank both of you for this very, very engaging talk. And I know that it's difficult to come in any room and kind of, even talk about difficult things like saying, privileged treatment being reserved to some people over other without, going into some kind of rhetoric on that, on, some people are not deserving that minimum degree of better treatment. And I just wanted to say it's a difficult conversation to have. And so really well done for leading that in a very informative way. I have a question, and I kind of know that this is a bit more geared towards you, Cecilia, because it's about Argentina and the representation of indigenous people in the cultural discourse in Argentina. Now, I know that recently a particularly difficult situation has come about with the new prime minister, the nut job. I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, I mean, of course, this kind of a Trump-like figure that took power and is already attempting to erode any kind of public service, any kind of discourse around minorities and around the history of working class people in Argentina and around the civil war and around everything. I just wanted to just know what you think about in terms of how this is affecting public discourse right in this moment. And in general, how much do you see a shift in this? Because I was in Buenos Aires last month, and something that I noticed is that, I mean, of course, you would have a lot of cultural institutions that would put forward quite nuanced and a quite progressive understanding of Argentinian history, like in terms of giving people a sense that, Argentina used to be inhabited before European colonizers arrived. There used to be advanced civilizations. In terms of more recent history in regard to the Civil War. But of course, as you've said, it's not like that there was something broadly spoken about and broadly understood in public consciousness even before the more recent events and the latest change in government leadership. So, yeah.
First of all, I think there is a difference between Buenos Aires and the rest of the country. Like Buenos Aires is their own bubble, and they also create their own representations of the rest of the country and who are Argentinians and the history of Argentinians that at least the elite and the Milei's government imposed again the idea that Argentina come from the ships, as they said, from abroad. We are not indigenous, we are not Black people, we are not a mix of different ethnic groups. But two things. One is that how do you say it? Sorry. Regardless of governments, leftist or rightist, indigenous people have suffered in Argentina. They have suffered for so many years. They have suffered. There have been kind of invisible dispossessions. I don't speak the language of my mother, which is Guarani, from the groups in the north, and there is a reason. So there is it's independent of the government, leftists, rightists. The indigenous people have a very, very difficult situation, and this is connected to land grabbing and big interest in larger lands in Argentina and industries. But the problem now is that with this new government, there are two things. The one is all the rights that have been fighted and now in a way won. We have had institutions that have looked for the rights of indigenous people, even when they didn't work well, they existed. Now they have closed down those institutions. Also, the institution against discrimination and xenophobia, they have closed down. So there is increased racism and hate and hate speech. And it's not only speech, but it's also actions. In northern Argentina now, they are also attacking the indigenous people. I work with the Mbura Guarani in the Misiones, in the forest, and last week their houses were burned. They contaminated the water, so they want to force them to leave the forest. These big proprietaries. So it's a very, very complex and distant situation, and I think that the issue that the government is so openly racist. It's a catastrophe.
And I think we've also got a question from Tatiana.
Hi, thank you both. I have a question now for Charly. I'm very interested in the process of the sketchbooking. So is it an individual process in terms of storytelling that your participants do at home in their own time, or are there moments where they do it together with you or with other participants? Are there moments where they share the stories? So I'm just curious about how you facilitate that and how the participant perceive this storytelling for them. How is it for them? Is it individual or is shared?
Yeah, a really good question. I think unlike lots of publications on creative methods, there's an assumption that creative things have to involve togetherness. And I think that whilst that can be valuable, and especially when you're dealing with communities, I also would like to place importance on the individual experience and the introvert, actually. So I try to make my projects as independent and private as possible. So when the sketchbooking project, we had a meetup, and it was in a neutral setting. So somewhere that the participant would choose, like a cafe or something. I was paying, obviously. At the time, I was on a student money, so it wasn't great. But we would have a conversation where we talked about what creativity is and what the limits are. A lot of the time, the participants would say to me that they were no good at art, you know. And we would unravel that. It's like, okay, who has told you that, you know, and take that apart. I gave each participant a kit, and it had in it recycled material, pens, chocolates, paper, blah, blah, whatever. And then they had 2 weeks, and they could do the sketchbook anywhere they wanted, for however much time they wanted and how much they wanted. Some did, you know, more than 60 pages, and some did just 3 or 4. And then we came back together, and they would explain to me what had happened for them. So it was quite an individual experience. Because I think as well, one of the problems with a lot of research that I see is the idea is to get everybody together in one workshop and then do the same themes. But I just think each person has their own thoughts. But if you want to know what those thoughts are, and for them to explore them, they need time. You need, like when you're working with mothers as well, they may not be able to attend, you know, this kind of workshop. So they could do it in their own time, you know. And that's something I want to push more for, but I think it's not very fashionable. But I'm going to keep going. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And then we go back to Helen, Fran, and Tatiana. Starting with you, Helen, how would you answer your own question? And also, what are your comments based on what Charly and Cecilia have said? And this is for the three of you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's with any socially engaged arts practice, yeah, it's so important to, think about the role of the writer, the artist, whoever, whatever medium we're working with, a writer, so words would be mine. But yeah, it's just fascinating to hear what you were saying, Cecilia, about that fear that came up for you initially, and it can be a really edgy place. And Charly, you were sort of saying about as a person with sort of privilege or relative privilege, that obviously as the artist, we need to think about our positionality, we need to think about what we're bringing. Yeah, so I mean, so much of what you were saying was really resonating, that sort of edginess. One of my sort of mottos as a creative practitioner has been about moving fearwards. So it's like feel the fear and do it anyway. And yeah, that's been really important. And I think, for me as a white person, it's been really important to not just stay silent, to kind of find ways in which I can kind of look at, sort of decolonial issues and sort of, find ways to sort of represent that in my own work. But yeah, I mean, I haven't done that sort of, really edgy, socially engaged work per se, a little bit. At times I've worked with elderly people with dementia, which was very edgy at times. And yeah, again, it's like, how to represent them, the ethics of representing, older people in our communities, often very marginalized and, and obviously, often represented very negatively. So yeah, I feel like I've got so many kind of synapses being sparked from this whole conversation. I really loved what you were just saying, Charly, about your process with your participants. That's very participant-centered approach that you take, and just getting them to, examine what is creativity in the first place and kind of deconstruct that. And yeah, I love that you sort of gave them a kit and a sketchbook, and yeah, that kind of opportunity to reflect, in their own time and space. That doesn't have to be about group work always. So I think that's really interesting to sort of think about as well. So yeah, thank you both. I really loved hearing your answers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, this is the first time I've actually talked about anything about my research ever. This is the first time.
Wow, amazing.
In like 4 years. Yeah. Finally, someone let me talk about the things I am interested in.
Wow, I can't believe it. And you mean you're so articulate about it as well.
Oh,
it just sounds like you talk about it all the time. So
no.
What a privilege for us to hear.
I mean, thank you so much. I mean, it's a privilege to be at this event, and I think that having these conversations is so important. And having the time and really listening to other people and learning from other people, I think it's so important. I really do. So this is just it's really lovely. Thank you for inviting me here, Ambrose, and for everybody for being here.
Thank you, Charly. Thank you. How about you, Fran and Tatiana?
I can start. I don't see Fran anymore, but he might be there somewhere. Yeah, for me, it was really very important to listen to the conversation, also to Ellen. And so from next month, I will be working for 2 years on an international project with Italy and Serbia on social and cultural inclusion of refugees in the host countries, in collaboration with as many cultural, but also community persons around us. So the part that I will be doing will involve also university students. So it's not about education, it's about indeed engaging with each other. And so I'm trying to brainstorm with myself on ways of doing. The storytelling is for me one of the central key of the central thing that I want to do, but involving arts, probably also dance and music and sharing things. So for me, it's important to hear and see different ways of engaging people. And so, and of course, where I work in the Netherlands, there is a rich texture of community engagement, and there are very, very lively centers where they utilize participatory methodologies, arts, music, food, and so to address different aspects. So all these themes comes back in your talks. So it's good to have, as you said, Charly, a big kit. I also use Cecilia kit of way of thinking. Of course, I've been working with people who are decolonial scholars for quite a while. So we have been involved in conversation of this type with ourselves and with the students. So yeah, thank you very much, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, my personal perspective is that in the environment where I currently work, I live in Leicester, UK, and work at the Stephen Lawrence Research Center at the Montfort University. Basically, what we do is mostly around decolonization and education. We do a lot of engagement with schools and community as well. Well, the thing is that a lot of my work, of course, is in a context that already deals in a pretty significant way with diaspora communities. It wouldn't necessarily be with refugees. It could be with communities that have a history of recent migration, but we're talking about communities that have been in the same place for decades by now. And well, are still considered as, I'm still treated as somewhat alien to the local environment by institutions. And so, of course, like something I'm trying to work on at the moment is attempting to understand from the experiences of others how you deal with, being in contexts where, you can't put people into brackets, but where people are to an extent forced into brackets, like where people are forced to say, I'm a refugee or I'm a migrant, I'm a minority. Like a lot of people wouldn't really necessarily like to be identified as that, I suppose. Some would as well. So it's about understanding what has been done, what has worked, what has resulted problematic, what, even understanding what issues people have faced in terms of, institutional resistances or kind of institution-driven abuses, or things that could, come from problems that arise from just working with a community where you are recognized as an external presence, quite rightfully so a lot of times. So yeah, to me, it's more about kind of grasping what other people with more experience in this have been doing and, trying to understand what can be taken away from it, really. So I'm really, really happy to be here.
Thank you, Fran. And then we turn back to you, Cecilia and Charly. What I know that you've said, is there anything that you'd like to emphasize or stress? And also, so that we end on this, what are your hopes?
Well, I mean, I would always say that I think keeping reading and keeping talking are some of the most, powerful things that we can do every day, having these conversations, and that can bring change. And I also would like to say, on the research side of things, I would say just a little quote. Okay, this is by one of my favorite social scientists. Okay. It's possible to conduct significant and satisfying research on all facets of human experience, but only if we extend our research methods so they become as creative and as expansive as the subject matter we wish to investigate. So that would be my push to research methods that place the participant at the center, feminist decolonizing methods. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Could you put that in the could you put that in the chat, Charly, with
yes,
the
I will,
reference?
yeah.
That would be amazing to get that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
And first, I would say thank you for this space, and it shows also it's really important that we have spaces to go into dialogue, to share, to see similarities across fields, places, to see more, to understand more together. So I'm very grateful for this space, and also because I think we need more interdisciplinarity. I think, at least from my anthropological point of view, we need artistic methods within science to humanize science. I think artistic methods are much more visceral, much more open-ended, and even when there is risky, they come with a lot of positive things that can help us to see differently. I think we are repeating history, repeating. We are saying the same thing. We are thinking with the same concepts, and I think arts can be there to help us to go out the black box and start thinking innovative, differently, feeling differently. So for more of these kind of spaces where we can share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on this note, on these words, I'll say thank you very much to Charly Morris, and also to Cecilia Salinas. We will be back at 4 p.m. UK time, where we are going to be looking at playback theater, children's books, and accents in performance. And for that conversation, we will be joined by Alisa Volkova, Shade Fadipe, and Anna Feifa Quiros. So we'll use the same link. See you at 2 p.m. if you can make it. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the evening, and see you again next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
And and thank you, Charly, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I wasn't very good. It's my first time speaking like this.
You're absolutely fine. You're fine. You're brilliant.
Sorry. Can I ask? So we will meet in half an hour, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. See you soon, Alice. Thank you. All right. See you soon. And good luck with the research you are doing.
Thank you. I hope to meet you again.
We definitely we will meet. Thank you.
Thank you.